Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Niemeyer, and I am one of the members of the steering committee for In This Together. I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone. Wherever you might be joining us from across the country, we recognize that some of you are from out in BC, where it's a later afternoon, to those of us in Eastern Canada, where it is the evening. So thank you for joining us. Our time together tonight is going to be about 75 minutes in total, just so that you have a sense of timing. We are going to be making this more of a working group. And so after a couple of presentations that we have from different congregations that have formulated at variance statements, we are going to have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms. One that is going to look at strategizing around addressing the confession of faith, creating an addendum to the confession of faith. The other one is going to be in terms of planning for a creative witness for the upcoming gathering for Mennonite Church Canada in Kitchener-Waterloo. So I am sharing with you from downtown Toronto. We are part of Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Feel free to place in the chat box where you are joining us from and the land acknowledgement, the treaty acknowledgement that is relevant for your community as well. I also want to let you know that if you have any questions around tech, you can message directly ITT Tech /Leah, and she will be able to help you with any tech issues that you might have. Also, when we are going to be dividing up into the different workrooms, they will be assisting as well in terms of helping you to get into a breakout room if you need that kind of assistance. So with that, I want to begin now by introducing Pastor Rielly McLaren from Windsor Mennonite Church to share their being at variance statement and why this was an important process for their community. So welcome here, Rielly. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here with all of you. And I wasn't first sure what a variance statement was when someone approached me at the MCEC conference last year, and I was, what a variance statement? What's a variance statement? And then I made the connection between what we had written and that being a variance statement. And so I was like, okay, this is apparently a variance statement. Yeah, grateful to learn more about what people are calling it in general. Our variance statement surfaced because we were in the process of writing an inclusion statement to state clearly to the community, to our own congregation, the position of our church. And it was important to have that clarity as listen to the congregation. And so we developed a working group, a writing group. And over about a year, we spent time listening to LGBTQ people in the community, listening to people within our community in terms of what is needed, also listening to harm that even came from inside of our church, places where people felt wounded, that were maybe identified along the LGBTQ spectrum, or maybe there were parents or caregivers of LGBTQ people, and listening to their experiences informed the writing of this process, this variance statement, as well as our welcoming statement. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that the inclusion statement led to writing our variance statement, because in the process of listening, the process of learning more about and discerning what we needed to write as a community, what came to the surface, particularly among newcomers to our church, was say it's really great that your congregation is inclusive and affirming. But when I go to the Mennonite Confession of Faith, there's this one section that doesn't seem to match. And that makes me a little uncomfortable about being a member, if I'm a member of a larger body. And so it was a barrier to belonging. And so we felt we needed to continue this discerning process and include some kind of variant statement if we were to actually write an inclusion statement, if you're following me, that they needed to go together. And so that led to us putting this together over a year. And we presented this multiple times to the congregation as a part of a process. And that process led to refining, to eventually us bringing it to our annual meeting where there was a unanimous approval of this inclusion and statement as well as the variance statement. I was an advisor. I was not part of the working group. And I thought that was important, that this is something that really comes from within among the community, not just something that's primarily driven by the pastoral leadership. But I was there as an advisor, as a support. And that really covers the essence of this. People are very passionate about it, very committed to this process, and really joyful with what came of it, and felt a deep responsibility that LGBTQ people within our churches are not left alone to advocate for their own place. That cisgendered people, that straight people also need to come into solidarity and stand with the LGBTQ community among Mennonite churches. And so that brought a lot of passion, and it brought together our community to hopefully make a difference and continue to.
Great. Thank you very much, Rielly. Appreciate that. And I'm going to invite Matthew to come forward.
Hey everyone. So this is Matt Fraze here, also on the steering committee in this together. I'm here in Winnipeg, and I'll just quickly introduce Val and Wark Warkentin here from Bethel Mennonite. I think Bethel, in sort of my understanding of things, has probably one of the most developed set of statements, and sort of have really worked through this this question of how the confession of faith and how being affirming can work through our governing documents. It kind of has more documentation than I think most other Mennonite churches do. And so I gave a bit of a prompt here to hopefully draw out something that I'm really interested in. Is so Bethel's really worked through this, taken the time to work through these written documents and shared statements, especially around Article 19. And so what I want to know is, have these documents done what you were hoping for within your church? And is there something specific that's still missing, or something that's still causing tension for people in your church? And what would you hope for from the broader denomination if we did gather together voices from across Mennonite Church Canada and committed to writing something new together? What would you want to see? I'll also be sharing, while they do a bit, I'll share highlights from some of the documents, and I'll throw some links in the chat if you want to dig into the details. Go ahead, Wark.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm not sure that I can cover everything that you talked about, but we'll give it a shot here. Val and I have been part of Bethel Mennonite Church in Winnipeg for 48 years. Look at the halo on my head. I mean, it's been a while. Following the chaos that marked the end of the GC-MC split and the new MC Canada, MC USA organization, this would have been about, what, 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. We were painfully aware of the heated debates about the place of affirming churches that had been expelled by the Mennonite Church before the merger. Now, since our daughter had recently come out to us as bisexual, we pushed Bethel to see if a church-wide conversation could possibly be arranged without the vitriol and hate that characterized so much of what Mennonite media were publishing at the time. And Bethel did have a 3-year dialogue process, and it was mostly respectful and courteous. Certainly, the rhetoric calmed down in the church. And at the end of those 3 years, in 2004, the church established the Pilgrim Group as a way to memorialize that dialogue, and Val and I led that group for almost 20 years. The aim of the group was to provide a safe place for people from the 2S LGBTQ+ community to meet and share experiences, faith, and resources. It was intended for Bethel folks, but very soon attracted people from a wide variety of religious and non-religious perspectives. It was never intended to be an advocacy body as such, but of course, many people from the group started to advocate for inclusion and affirmation within their respective churches, and that included Bethel. In a nutshell, Bethel became a formally affirming and welcoming congregation without a congregational vote in 2016, so it took a while. But since then, we have developed various ways of identifying our variance with the Confession of Faith, and in particular, Article 19. Our church's website has a clear statement repudiating that article insofar as it castigates same-sex relationships. And in 2003, we revised our constitution and operating bylaw, as well as our governance policy, to make explicit and public our disagreement with Article 19, and to urge our denominational partners to rewrite the confession. Yeah, this is from our Constitution. The church substantially affirms each of the articles, but disagrees with the article on family, that is Article 19. Our church accepts that same-sex relationships and same-sex marriage are not inherently sinful, and we accept that people in such relationships and marriages may be and are members in good standing of Bethel. And the governance policy as well, similarly, goes on to urge the denominational partners to rewrite the confession altogether. Number three there, number three, although the church acknowledges the confession as a primary and foundational summary of our faith, it is more accurate to say that such acknowledgement is a substantial and not absolute embrace of the confession. And it's the policy of the church that the confession is important, but it is time for a denomination to rewrite the document and to rewrite a statement of faith that more accurately reflects the faith and life of Mennonites generally, and of this church specifically. And the church recommends such a write and rewrite to its denominational partners. Why was it necessary for Bethel to publicly articulate our variance with the confession? Well, for Val and me, conversations that we had in the context of the Pilgrim Group convinced us that for a church like Bethel to come out as affirming, yet continuing to support MC Manitoba and MC Canada, and Bethel has always been a very strong conference church and continues to be a strong conference church. But we were sending mixed signals, almost to the point of hypocrisy, as Rielly was talking about as well. Do we support Article 19 or do we not? So it was critically important to say no, but to say so in ways that encourage the conference to review the confession and hopefully rewrite it. Not just for the sake of Article 19, but really it is time for a complete review and probably a rewrite of what our common faith actually is or what it means. And we have communicated that encouragement to both MC Manitoba and MC Canada, and we are pleased that there has been a positive response. Not a sufficient response, Val and I think, but a willingness to open discussion within both of these bodies in a larger context. Now, have these statements resolved the tensions around welcoming and affirming and encouraging 2S LGBTQ+ members at Bethel? Or is there something that remains to wrestle with? Well, within the context, within Bethel, after 9 years of being affirming, we have yet to celebrate a same-sex wedding in the church. Mind you, we haven't had many weddings at all in the church. COVID has been a big factor of that, of course. And the strength of the commitment to full inclusion and affirmation varies within the congregation from individual to individual, and we still note microaggressions in conversations in the church foyer. So yes, we recognize that there is a lot of work that still needs to happen within Bethel. And as for the conferences, we see definite signs of hope, but we also recognize that the leadership of these bodies cannot by themselves change the confession or the contents of the Saskatoon and Purdue statements from 1986 and 1987. Despite the sense of urgency that Val and I have felt from the get-go, we realize that these changes will take time that we sometimes think we do not have. But our advocacy needs to include other congregations, other area churches, and even MCUSA, perhaps even the Global Mennonite Church. And to provide these bodies with new perspectives or a fresh analysis of traditional views would be helpful in giving options for new paths forward. We very much support the idea of all of us in this together, creating options for our conference bodies and churches to consider as we all commemorate 500 years of doing just that. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think gave us a good launching pad here.
Absolutely. That was great. I know that probably generates some questions for folks too, but we do want to make a good part of this evening a working group evening. So just to remind people that, so we have two breakout rooms that we're going to go into. One is around strategizing around Article 19. And to let you know that there have been conversations with the various denominational leaders, with Doug Clausen, with each of the regional church leaders, and some helpful feedback in terms of what they would find helpful in terms of moving this conversation along as well. So I'll share that with you in terms of, I know that from a number of the different regional leaders, they said that it would be very helpful for there to be letters written from churches that want to see change taking place as it relates to Article 19 and the Confession of Faith. And given that our ecclesial framework of working since 2016 is that it's congregational based, we would really want to encourage groups to for churches to network with each other. So in your breakout room around strategizing, we want to encourage you to create these networks with other churches who want to see movement on this, and to formulate letters that will go to your denominational reps, whether that's MCEC or Mennonite Church Manitoba, or our various regional churches. So Matt is going to facilitate that group around strategizing as it relates to the Confession of Faith. We also want to recognize that for many people across our denomination, those associated with the different regional bodies of Mennonite Church Canada, this may not be on their radar. They may not know, as Rielly, as you indicated, in terms of what's a being at variance statement. What does that entail? What's that about? And so we want to raise awareness around the importance of this at the upcoming gathering of Mennonite Church Canada in Kitchener-Waterloo. And we wanted to do this from kind of a playful, positive stance in terms of working with the idea of being faithfully at variance. And just to remind people that the gathering theme is one of each gift, and it's so the first day would be celebrating gifts, visiting wounds, transforming injustices, and you belong. So those are the different themes for each of the days gathering for the upcoming July gathering of Mennonite Church Canada. Each one of those themes on each one of those days has a lot that we can say as it relates to LGBTQ plus justice. And so we want to take creative opportunities to think about how we bear witness to each day's theme. So if you want to be part of that conversation, then you join the creativity breakout group. I think that's probably enough talking on my part, but I just